Everything is on the line for these three teams in the upcoming NFL Draft. The NFL Draft is not far away, and many teams need to have fantastic draft classes in order to take their rosters to the next level. Whether it's taking a bottom-feeding team into a promising one, or taking a team that's been on the brink of the playoffs into a Super Bowl contender. But there's three teams that we need to discuss where their head coaches are in really bad situations, or there is a lot on the line for particular players on the roster, and the season needs to go really well. The catalyst for their success will be if they draft well and they end up extracting multiple key starters. Let's dig in with the three teams that you need to know about. The first and the most obvious is the Cincinnati Bengals. Zac Taylor has been on a downward slide since he took the Bengals to the Super Bowl not that long ago. After falling to the Rams, it has been a downhill process for the Cincinnati team. And the clear cause for their problems is the fact that their defense has been atrocious. They fired Lou Anarumo, they brought in Al Golden, and the defense still was a gigantic liability. If Joe Burrow's on the field and this defense is better, then they can absolutely get back to the playoffs, and Zac Taylor can buy himself time. Looking at this roster, their top needs, and I think at the 10th overall pick they can come away with a key starter, are defensive tackle, edge, linebacker, and defensive back. They did sign Boye Mafe and Jonathan Allen in free agency, which ultimately mitigates some of those concerns at those positions. But again, they need to, at that 10th overall pick, come away with a difference maker. The one problem for them at the 10th overall pick, some of these top prospects that they might be eyeing, like Sonny Styles from Ohio State, Caleb Downs also from Ohio State, David Bailey from Texas Tech, Ruben Bain, all those players could be gone and completely off the table. One has to ask, should the Bengals trade up? Should they move up? I certainly think so, with so much pressure to get this team back to the playoffs in 2026. But that being said, three prospects that I think they should keep an eye out that are realistic are Sonny Styles, as I mentioned. His ability to be able to plug right into the middle of that defense would elevate the entire group. Caleb Downs is a do-it-all defensive back who is incredibly instinctual. And lastly, Mansour Delane from LSU is a sticky covered corner and the type of guy that they need to add to their secondary. The next team we got to talk about is the Minnesota Vikings. Everything was trending upward for the Vikings, except when they had to turn things over to J.J. McCarthy. Their supposed future quarterback that they were supposed to build around was super banged up last year, and his performance was incredibly inconsistent. They missed the playoffs going 9-8, and they now have the 18th overall pick heading into this draft. They decided to go and get Kyler Murray, which one would assume he will start over J.J. McCarthy because he is quite simply a better player. But they need to, with their 18th overall pick, come away with a difference maker, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They have done a lot of great things to improve their offense, but their defense could use another big-time playmaker in order to help them get back to the playoffs and be the same defensive monster that they were 2 years ago. I will say this before I get into the three prospects that they should pay attention to. I feel like if Jeremiah Love was there, or they could trade up for Jeremiah Love, the running back from Notre Dame, they should consider it. But it's probably going to be tough to do that. They need to find a defensive tackle, an edge rusher, a defensive back, and probably a running back at some point. The three prospects that I like the most for them to target: Dylan Thieneman from Oregon, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren from Toledo, and Caden McDonald from Ohio State. Thieneman is an unreal athlete. He is an instinctual, fluid safety prospect that could end up replacing Harrison Smith, who was a mainstay in that defense for so long. McNeil-Warren is another long, rangy, rare athlete that could play in the box. He could play over the top. He could be a Kyle Hamilton, Jeremy Chin type of a player for Brian Flores to use. And then lastly, if they just want to get some meat in the middle, Caden McDonald from Ohio State takes up space, and he's going to be able to free everybody up around him. Lastly, the Carolina Panthers have this opportunity this upcoming year to become the mainstay top team in the NFC South. I don't think that Dave Canales going into his third year really has much pressure on him, but I feel like that this is a true make or break year for Bryce Young, who started to show some signs of progress, but still a lot of inconsistency. He'd have a great game and then an absolute dumpster fire of a performance. This is an offseason where they need to go all in on adding final pieces to help him succeed. And if Bryce Young can't succeed with everything around him and maybe some new weapons to finalize that roster, then it's going to be clear that they need to pull what the Minnesota Vikings just did, or also what the Indianapolis Colts did with Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. That being said, they need to address at the 19th overall pick finding potentially a new starting safety, another pass rusher. I would argue a wide receiver should be worth consideration because Xavier Legette has not played up to that first-round billing. And I know they've got a lot of tight ends, but drafting another tight end should be considered, especially if someone like Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon, is on the board. The three prospects that I think that they should consider in the first round, as I mentioned, Kenyon Sadiq from Oregon, Caden McDonald from Ohio State, who we talked about with the Minnesota Vikings. And lastly, I think that if Jordan Tyson has a theoretical slide because of maybe some concerns with his injury history, him joining this team and becoming the Z in the offense would add so much diversity to the receiver room. Jalen Coker is already a solid third option. Tet McMillan has turned into a star as their big-bodied X receiver. Jordan Tyson being added to the mix would really make Carolina so impossible to keep up with. I know receiver is not like a primary need, but if someone as gifted as Jordan Tyson, who I think his ceiling is Justin Jefferson, would take that team to a level that they have been striving to get to for a very long time. Comment below, which teams do you think have the most on the line in the 2026 NFL Draft, and which prospects do you think those teams need to draft?